Financial freedom. I guess that's a goal all of us are trying to achieve, right? But when it comes to achieving financial freedom, it's really important that we're implementing the correct steps to actually future-proof our finances to achieve this overall goal. But what does it mean to actually future-proof our finances, and how can we go about doing so? Well, to chat with me on the podcast today, I'm joined with Bola So, financial advisor and 2 times author. Hello, Bola. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me in person.
Yeah, you're welcome, because you've been on the podcast before, but now we're in the studio. It's a bit of an upgrade.
I love it. I love it. I was just saying, I love the setup. I love the location. I'm like, yes.
Yep, I love it. And I'm very excited to chat to you because so much has changed since we last had you on the podcast. I mean, you're now a financial advisor. I mean, you already had your book, but now you're writing another book, which we'll obviously chat about in a moment. But yeah, for those listening who haven't listened to our previous episode together, please introduce yourself to everyone.
Oh, my name is Bola So. I am a qualified financial advisor. I studied mathematics and finance at university. Actually graduated 10 years ago.
Wow.
And I became a finance expert. As much as I learned about money and the intricacies of finance, I also wanted to talk about personal finance because I just never wanted to get rich on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I have been blessed to be featured almost for many companies everywhere from Financial Times to BBC. I've been on Sky News, Channel 5. I've written a second book called Your Money Life, which is coming out with Penguin and Murky Books. So we've been doing lots of promo and PR for that. And I feel very blessed to have the career that I've had so far.
And it's been a journey. Like, you've even transitioned, like, job-wise. Also, you've been creating content as well alongside all of this, and obviously you're writing your books, which is just, yeah, like I said, really inspiring to see. I guess my first question to you is, what inspired you to start sharing money or talking about money online?
So I talk about this a bit in my new book, Your Money Life, which I actually finished at the start of this year. It was supposed to be end of last year, but things ran over. Me and my best friend always were like, we are going to make money.
Yeah.
Right? But it got to a point where I started talking to her about things I was learning at uni and she didn't understand. And I've always had siblings to go to for answers, but I know everyone doesn't have that. And also my oldest brother happens to be an accountant.
Okay.
So there was always books around and things, and I was always really good with numbers. So I just felt like I didn't want to leave other people out from this education because we all use money every day.
Yep.
It's something we all use, and I just feel like we should all know how to use it to the best of our abilities. Everything isn't just about being a consumer. Sometimes it's about, hey, how do I save? How do I invest? How do I grow wealth and create financial freedom?
Yes. No, exactly that. And I guess from when you first started creating content to now, what has changed, I guess, in terms of the landscape and also the content you create, if there has been any?
The landscape has changed. When I first started creating content 9 years ago, people thought I was weird.
Yep.
Because it was just beauty and fashion.
Yeah.
I was talking about finance, and I was just quite early to the digital hemisphere that now exists.
Yeah.
When it came to finance, of course, I can only imagine 9 years ago talking about fitness or well-being would have been weird as well. But times change, and I would just say that there's definitely been a lot more growth and appetite for it, especially since 2020. That's definitely when a lot of people were like, wow, the thing you're talking about is quite important.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's called cyclical trends.
Yes.
Content creation,
Oh, yeah.
it's forever changing. I have done it in every single medium because I feel like when you say that you do something, you should be able to do it in different formats.
You know what? It's funny you mentioned cyclical trends, and I don't know about you, but post-COVID, running all things money, everyone wanted to talk about money. Every brand wanted to speak to some person who spoke about money. Companies were booking me left, right, centre, and I think this year, I think the trends kind of dipped a little bit. Would you agree, or have you seen something different?
And you know what? This is kind of something I'd say online, offline. This is where being a financial advisor and an expert in your field changes. It dipped a little for me, but not that much. But also because of cyclical trends, I know when brands come.
Yes.
And I know when they don't. I know when they get their new budget. I know when their budget. They want to make sure they use all of it so that they get the same amount or more next year.
Yeah.
So I know when it's going to be quiet and when it's not, and I make sure I do other things in those time periods just to keep myself busy.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. No, I love that. Maybe something I still need to learn. I'm still figuring it out, to be fair, but yeah,
You're
definitely.
doing so well. You're doing so well.
Thank you, Bola. But obviously, like I said, I know you pretty well. You've come on the podcast before. I know all the great work you do, but people listening might not know who Bola So is, right? So I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you, just so we can get to know you as a person. So one of my biggest questions, and I've been really looking forward to asking you this question because you are a beautiful woman, right? Not even blowing smoke up your ass, but you are. So I'm keen to know, what is your guilty pleasure when it comes to spending your money?
Takeaway.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it might have been like fashion, makeup.
No, that's not. Okay, so fashion is a part of my life. I used to model when I was like 15 and like 16 and so on. So, fun fact, I actually wanted to like not go to uni and model.
Wow.
And my parents were like, no. But then they said you can do it after, but kind of semi fell out of love with it. But fashion, just because of that, fashion seems to be a natural part of my life. And I can justify spending as long as it is like... it's part of what I call my, capsule wardrobe.
Yes.
It's like a key item I can have. Although I do have moments where I'm just like, I'm so tired of being responsible. Let me buy stuff. I did that the other day and I'm returning everything.
That's me when I'm buying before I go on holiday. I always feel like I need a new holiday wardrobe, and then I literally try it on and I'm like, no, Ola.
Yeah, you've just got to do an audit. So I'm currently in audit year of my life. I was talking to my friend about that today. Every other year I do an audit of my life. And the whole point is I do an audit of my finances, of my wardrobe, of my files, like physical stuff. And I'm just like, what do you need? What don't you need? What needs to go? What can stay? What are your goals again?
Yeah. No, that's so interesting. I'm at that point, especially now we're over halfway through the year. I'm like looking at my goals that I set this year. I'm like, are they still my goals? Have I achieved those goals? And I feel like that's something we all need to do better at, because I feel like the year goes so quickly that you actually don't ever take stock of what you've achieved, what you haven't, what's yet to come and things like that. But I love that answer. Why takeaways?
I work a lot. And the energy that I do have, I want to spend with my boyfriend. I want to spend with my family, or I just want to spend on the sofa by myself. And I actually love to cook. I love to serve. Ask anyone. I've been having birthdays since I was 25, and it's literally been there's rice at home party. And I literally just invite people round. But then as it got bigger, I just get a caterer, but I'll make apple crumble. I love to cook, and when I do cook, it's great. But because I've been in an era of working so much, I'm like on the app.
And with like the likes of Deliveroo and Uber Eats now, it's so easy to do.
It's so easy, and I know my staples. I just know my staples of what I want. But it depends on my mood and stuff. But I must say that a lot of my decisions are very much based on my hormonal cycle, which I track.
always the case. Like I definitely crave. I know I love chocolate through and through, but I crave chocolate 10 times more when I'm due on. 100%. Really? And that's why I'm like, Oliver, we need to be aware of this so you can actually not gain weight before your period.
Yeah. So I actually, that's when I do the most spending. PMS. I do the most. I spoke about that in my first book, How to Save It. But PMS, I actually bought clothes, and those are the ones that are getting returned, because I was just like, that was not you. That was insomnia, which is now a new symptom that I have now. I'm in my early 30s. And I was just like, what are you doing? And then Flo was like, Flo,
it's coming.
Like, hey, and I was like, oh yeah, that's what I do. Let me return.
But it's so good to be aware of that things. And again, that's not something that's ever spoken about, especially within the female community. So thank you for highlighting that.
No, you're welcome.
And then I guess my second question for you is, what's the weirdest side hustle or odd job you've ever tried to make extra cash?
Odd job. Oh gosh, I've actually had a lot of different jobs. What's an odd job I've done? I know that there's some, but I can't. Okay, one time back in my modelling days, I took a gig where I was outside a fashion shop and I wore a dress, and it was like, the whole point is I had to stand outside and tell people to come in.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of the shop. I think it was Dizzy Girl. That's what it's called. D-E, yeah.
Yes.
And they were just like, yeah, just stand out here and stuff. It was, yeah, that's what I did for mine. It was funny because I forgot to shave my underarm. So like,
oh
I was
no.
like this.
Literally just like, come in.
I was like, come in. It was a lovely dress. I think the model Adriana Lima wore it for their cover. So they were like, oh yes, pretty like her.
It's funny because I'm 26 and I went on holiday last month with my friends, and I was telling them the different jobs I've had, and they're like, Ollie, you've lived so many lives. And I was like, I probably have, because I've been from like working in the play assistant to being a lifeguard to being a receptionist, like just rogue things. But one thing that always makes me laugh is that obviously selling on Vinted is not new, right? But times I wanted to make so much money in sixth form that I used to sell. You know, when you used to buy things from Pandora and you get the charms and the bracelet, I used to sell the Pandora boxes and the Pandora bags.
You're a real hustler. I love it for you. I love it.
And they used to sell, and I was like, well, that's, you know, that covers like, I don't know, my meal out to like Nando's.
Yeah. No, so you've been a hustler from early. This is all making sense now. This is all, and I love what you said about living loads of lives. I feel like I've lived loads of lives, but I always wanted to, because I never wanted to look back at my life and say this is mundane.
Yeah. And it's so easy to get to that point in your life and like, what have I actually done or achieved?
Yeah, or you just feel like you've done what everyone has told you to do, like your parents or whoever it is who you listen to, and then it's just kind of like, well, great, well, these were your life choices, but what were mine?
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm like, do you know what? I'm really happy and content. I don't mind doing the mundane things now.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I guess on the podcast today, we're chatting all about future-proofing our finances. This is something you cover in your book, which is soon to come out, which is I'm really looking forward to read. But for those listening on the podcast, what does it actually mean to future-proof your finances?
To future-proof your finances means to prepare for them. So it means that, of course, when I'm never saying don't have fun, but I'm saying that there are things that you can put in place so that when the unexpected happens, or even when the expected happens, you're ready.
Yeah.
So there's 3 main sections in the book: healthier, wealthier, and happier. And the whole point is, healthier is about the basics when it comes to like finance, everything, you know, that we talk about: saving, credit, debt, budgeting. Wealthier is naturally more of the financial advisory section, everything from stocks and shares to bonds to property to, if you're an entrepreneur, to insurance, to wills, to tax allowances if you're married, like all of that stuff. And happier is just, what are you actually doing with your money that makes you happy? But future-proofing your finances ensures, first of all, through those sections, that you, one, have an understanding of what it means to be in a healthy money situation, and have a good foundation. I understand that life isn't always easy for everyone, but at least know where you are. And then it's like, what can you do? So for example, could you get life insurance? Could you get critical illness cover just in case? Do you want a will? Do you have a trust, or is there anyone in your family who has a trust or a will, and are you all helping each other? So it's about future-proofing for yourself, especially as a woman. This book is for women, which I feel like 10 years ago everyone would have said, why on earth would you want to write that? So I feel like it's really God's plan to allow me to write this book at this stage of my life. Future-proofing, preparing for the expected and unexpected, and ensuring you're in the right situation. I don't like to hear about GoFundMes or that people weren't prepared for things. We all know that the job market currently is a bit tough. In the event of job loss, are you okay? You know, did you have an emergency fund? Your child is getting older. Do you have a junior stocks and shares ISA for them? Do you have a will? You know, if anything is to happen, as I said, expected or unexpected, are you ready? That's what future-proofing is.
Wow. To be fair, when I saw that your book was going to touch on the topic of future-proofing, I interpreted it in such a different way, but I'm so glad you have described it the way you did, because I was thinking retirement. And that will be one subsect, but like you mentioned, it's so multifaceted about life insurance, which I've now got a life insurance cover because I've realised the importance of that. I don't want my mum to ever have to do a GoFundMe page, God forbid, if I died. Wills, again, something that people don't really think about. Obviously, we've got the classic investing, but I think it just goes beyond so much more than just saving and investing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I love what you said about pensions. I totally forgot to mention that. Pensions, everything from whether you have a SIP, which is a self-invested personal pension, to if you have a workplace pension, understanding the difference between DB and DC, which is defined benefit and defined contribution. I go into all of that. But the whole point is, like, you know, your money, your money journey is forever, for as long as you're alive. So is your physical journey, your spiritual journey, everything else. So it's literally just about carrying you through those different stages. It's what I call it, it's an evergreen guide. And of course, a couple things change, tax thresholds, but the whole point is like, this should help you future proof. So if something is to happen, good or bad, yay, I'm getting married, or oh my gosh, what do I do?
Yeah.
You can grab it in both situations.
Yeah. And that's the most important thing, isn't it? Because life is so full of the unexpected, which makes it so hard to plan for, which is why you do, like we said, quote unquote, have to future proof your finances. Now, obviously, we touched on a couple of topics there. So I guess for people that are listening, what are some of the ways they can go about future proofing their finances then?
So first of all, I'm going to say, on the basis that, you know, on any basis, everyone should have an emergency fund. An emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of your expenses. Now, if 6 months sounds daunting, start with 1 month.
Yeah.
And keep going, because if anything is to happen, you want to say you're good on top of what you do. Second of all, your financial habits are incredibly important. So are you budgeting regularly? Are you saving for the long term, and obviously short term, as I said, the emergency fund? Future proofing your finances as well, having investments that you understand, not just what's popular.
Yes.
Having investments that are regulated, as opposed to just hearing people make fantastic gains in something that's not yet regulated, aka cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
It's a risky game. So I would say definitely that, you know, your financial habits, everything from budgeting to saving to having an emergency fund to having different types of investments. Also knowing where your pension is. If you have a student loan, where is that at? So it's literally a bunch of things, but I don't like to overwhelm people. So I always say start with your financial habits. Some people are like, I want to get into investing because they feel like at the age that they're at, they should do that. It's not, everything isn't about age. Sometimes it's about stage.
Yes.
If two people could be 30 years old, one person has 10K in debt and they're talking about they're ready to invest, you need to focus on the debt.
Yeah.
Another person could have maybe not a lot of debt, something that they can pay off within the next month or two, and then they have an emergency fund and they have savings and they say, I'm ready to invest. That is someone who's probably more aligned and ready. Sometimes we want to jump because we're nervous or we're scared or we're being left behind, or we open the apps and everyone's just like, here's how I made 6 figures at 10 years old. And
always
like, this isn't helpful, because some people aren't telling you how they're keeping that money.
Yeah.
Some people aren't telling you what they're doing long term, or like I said, so it's not as well. It's not just about you making money; it's about you keeping it as well.
Yeah.
Like how are you growing and making the most of that?
Yeah, 100%. And I guess obviously we touched on that buzzword, investing. How does investing actually allow us to future-proof our finances?
So the hope with investing is that you get a return, a type of return. So it's usually in percentages, and it's the type of return that you usually cannot get through saving normally.
Okay.
Because saving through a bank, or, you know, having a high yield savings account, whatever type of savings account you use, it might currently be at about maybe 4%. But the whole point is, if you invest in index funds, exchange traded funds, if you invest in property or bonds or whatever it is you choose to invest in, the return should usually be better. And the longer you invest in some of these things, the better it is for you. So let's say, for example, someone invests in stocks and shares for 15 years, and then they choose to have a family and they have kids, and maybe their kids are now getting ready to go into higher education. They could look at that on the basis they've been investing regularly, see where they are, and say, do you know what, I think I'm ready to pull out some of this money. This is why I've invested. Or you hit 55, you want to take out 25% tax-free of your pension, and then you're like, I want to take some of that out. I've now decided I'd like to work for 3 days a week instead of 5.
Yeah.
Maybe spend more time with my kids, my husband, my wife, whatever spouse. That's why you invest. You invest for the return in the long run, not the short run. I know some people who are just like, yeah, that's going to pay for date night. And I'm like,
okay, that's a new one.
But it's, you know, and this is why education is so important. Do people understand time horizons and stuff? So yeah.
And it's really interesting because you spoke about different scenarios there. Would you say, to motivate us to want to future-proof our finances, do we need to set these goals in place then?
Yes, set some goals. I set goals just because, and I've actually made some of my friends can tell you, I've made some of my goals very vocal, just so that now we're at a place where a lot of them have come to fruition. I've just done it to sometimes hold myself accountable. And I spoke to my friend, we don't catch up often, and he was just like, one thing I like about you, you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
we all need to be that person.
yeah, I think I've just always been kind of motivated to ensure I'm having the life I want and not the life that other people set up for me, whether that be an employer, whether that be a loved one. I'm like, right, what is the life that I feel authentically I am supposed to live?
Yeah.
And I think everyone to an extent should have that, but you do need the right drive and you do need to set goals. Setting goals are important. I know a lot of people now who are making good money and they do not care. They are not happy because they felt like they had to do what maybe they were told was right to do.
Yeah.
Lawyer, doctor, accountant, whatever it is. So
yeah, and I guess on top of that, for me, one of my goals, I mean, whether or not, actually no, I'm going to be positive on the podcast today.
be positive.
I want to retire by the age I'm 50, right?
Okay.
If not
like
earlier.
it.
Okay.
I love it.
So that's where me putting aside a decent amount of money into my pension pot right now is really, really important. And I make sure that's one thing I definitely do, especially being self-employed, because I don't have employee contributions. Now, if there's anyone listening to the podcast today that has maybe similar goals or knows the term pension, but maybe wants to take advantage of maximising it now rather than later, how can they go about doing that?
Again, one of the most important things when it comes to investing is time horizons. The earlier you start investing long term, the better. Someone who starts at the same amount every month into their pension at 25 versus 35, the person who is 25 will still have more because of compound interest,
Yes.
which is interest on interest. So one of the best things anyone in the UK can do is invest in their pension. It is one of the most tax efficient things you will ever invest in. So I think your question was just like, what's the point and what's the benefit?
And how do you maximise it?
How do you maximise it? Yeah, so you make sure that you're actually putting in the maximum allowance each tax year if you can. And let's say, for example, you have a permanent job, you're an employee. Maybe you can do salary sacrifice, I think, and you can actually just speak to your employer and say, how can I make sure that I'm putting the most into my pension? Of course, on top of that, you can set up your own private pension as well. It depends on if you want to do that. Of course, it's very easy and biased of us to say, oh yeah, it's easy, but we do this all the time.
Yeah.
But it's about how you want to do it. But definitely self-invested personal pension. I spoke about that earlier. There's different types of pensions, and yeah, I would just say make sure you're maximizing the allowance and don't ever see it as, oh my gosh, I'm losing money. You're losing money to your future self. Money to your future self, which is tax efficient and is probably going to do so much better than that silly thing you want to buy.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I love buying silly things, but at the same time, I put a limit on it for the sake of the future.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, like, for a lot of the people that listen to the podcast are in their 20s, they're kind of stuck between saving for the future and having fun now. And I think you can definitely do both. Granted, I know some people are struggling financially at the moment with the cost of living crisis, but I think even if you are saving a little bit for your future self, that's better than nothing. Because I feel like there's a lot of people that want to stop contributing to into their workplace pension just so they can have that money now. And obviously, I can't give financial advice, but I'm assuming, be sat with a financial advisor today, you'd be like, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do it. Like, I will say that loud and proud. Don't keep putting money into your pension. It's so tax efficient, and also, like, you have to think. There's some companies that if you put in 3% of your salary, they'll put in 6% and things like that. Who else is giving you that return? And I always say, if you think you need the money now, wait till you wake up at 50 plus and you cough and your back hurts. Like, what? That's when you're going to wish that you had something else to stand on. And I'm just, I just need more people to get real. I know it's a cost of living crisis. Some of the people who are doing that, they don't even have real problems yet.
Yeah.
They are working for banter. They're working because that's what they're supposed to do. But when you know, if you choose to have a family, if you choose to have a mortgage, whatever it is, when life starts to get real, that's when you'll think like, okay, I'm probably going to need to look at the future a bit because, you know, oh, another birthday. I'm still alive. All right, then. If I'm still alive, how do I want to be living in 30 years?
And it's so important that, right? Because for me, like, I've mentioned in the early episodes, I love to save. I do invest more regularly. I make sure I invest into my pension because I can afford to do so right now. I don't have any dependents.
Yeah.
My rent is minimal. I don't have any partner that I have to pay out for right now, although I would love a partner maybe in the future. But I'm like the best even though I'm not a millionaire, I'm definitely in the best position to contribute to my future self right now, because
Yeah.
10 years down the line, if I have children, or, you know, I have like partner or a pet, because I want a pet, my financial commitments will be so different now. So I think, you know, whilst we're young, is the perfect opportunity to maximise the opportunity to future-proof our finances,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So I guess a lot of people also think about property, right? Property being this big investment they want to make now, because that might be able to pay off for their retirement, etc., etc. So do you currently own property firstly? And do you think investing in property is a good way to kind of future-proof your finances as well?
One, yes, I own a property I reserved when I was 29 and did all of that, moved in when I was 30. So I've lived there for 2 years now. We have a housing crisis. So from an ethical standpoint, I don't necessarily agree with hoarding homes when there aren't enough for people. So that's a personal stance. I also sometimes get the stance of like, well, I'm not better than anyone else, and I'm just going to do that. I think that you have to be quite intellectual about how finance works to invest in different ways.
Yeah.
And buying property back in the day was a lot easier. You didn't even have to do it through a limited company for it to be tax efficient.
Yeah.
And now that's changed. Some people are trying to offset properties in their personal name in order to put it through a limited company. And I just feel like we're constantly jumping through hoops. The margins are changing in terms of what you can earn. And I say to some people, even if you get 3 or 4 properties, it's sometimes still not enough to quit your day job. It's enough to know that your retirement will be okay.
Yeah.
But it just, yeah, it's something to get into, but you have to, just like certain parts of finance, you have to study it. You have to pay attention to the market. What's usually happening if people talk about an autumn budget or spring budget,
Yeah.
you have to stay on top of that, if things are changing. But also location. If that's what you're going to do, think about where you're doing it. Just because something works for your granddad in 1975, it's not going to work for you today. Yeah. The whole point of something being successful is that it was probably done in a particular period where there was room for growth and opportunity. So don't necessarily, sometimes it's the case, but you might not see as much growth. So if someone is telling you, yeah, you know, I bought a property 20 years ago for 200k and now it's 500k, you cannot replicate that same strategy. No. So it's really important that anyone who is going to do it, they're strategic and they have the right people around, aka a good accountant, and they have a good understanding of what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think it can be great as a pension, but the more I see affordability for first-time buyers becoming an issue and everything that's happening currently, I'm a bit like, oof, I don't feel happy about buying lots of property and using that as my pension.
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good outlook, I guess, because I've never seen it as that. I'm not in the property game, and if I am, it's going to be a way, way off into the future. But I actually never thought about the ramifications of the amount of people that are investing in properties and how that's having an impact on like first-time buyers, the prices of the property. I guess maybe one good thing about the rise in interest rates is that maybe it's slowed property purchases. I don't really know what your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it has. It's just made it harder.
Yeah.
It's just made it harder. Like salaries aren't going up in alignment with inflation. So the way I feel is like the American dream is you can be anything you want to be. The British dream is you can buy a property.
Yeah, so true.
And I'm just like, so now you're saying that the British dream has gone from this to this.
Yeah. But why is it the British dream though? Like everyone wants to buy a property.
Oh gosh,
everyone.
There's so much into that, but that's probably a podcast for another day. There's so much historically that I've looked into that, but the UK is obsessed with land and ownership and things like that. Hence freehold, leasehold, whether or not you own the property, the land beneath you, and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting topic of conversation, but really appreciate all the tips and guidance you shared in today's episode. I guess one of my final questions for you is if you had to give one final tip to my listeners about how they can maybe just better manage their finances or future-proof their finances, what would you give them?
Keep upskilling and learning. The things that I am learning now is that I have to keep upskilling and learning. Like I speak to my advisors sometimes about my next moves. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to learn that. And the whole point is that if I could, I would just have everything pause, like technology, digital, every algorithm. I'd just be like, stop.
Yeah.
Let's sit here for 5 or 10 years, but life doesn't work that way.
No.
So I want to tell everyone, keep learning and keep upskilling. It is okay to switch industries if you know that making a certain amount of money is a priority to you and your industry doesn't have that capacity. It's absolutely fine. Just keep learning whatever it is, and stay curious, honestly, because the conversations that I have with people, those are the ones that let me know, first of all, wow, there's money to be made.
Yeah.
But two, in order to keep your money, how do you learn about tax efficiency? Who do you partner with in business? And that only comes through curiosity. So curiosity, keep learning, keep upskilling, and you will be fine. Keep asking questions.
Yeah, and I guess one beautiful resource to help you guys to upskill is the podcast, of course. And obviously, Bola, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today, because some of the gems you've shared are just so crucial. And I think, again, it's not something we're taught about in school. I love the fact that you are qualified to give this advice now, so it makes the conversation even that much better. But obviously, I touched on the fact that you are in the process of publishing your second book. So what is that book all about?
Your Money Life is about how to afford the future you want. And the book is exclusively for women under Penguin and Murky Books. It is coming out on the 29th of August this year, 2024. And like I said, it has 3 main sections: healthier, wealthier, and happier. It is the evergreen guide you need to know and understand finance in the UK, but from the perspective of making you the main character.
I love that. And yeah, Bola, thank you so much again for joining me back on the podcast, as well as the book. You obviously create great personal finance content. So if anyone wants to check that out as well and just see what you're getting up to, because it's a lot, where can they go to follow you?
You can follow me everywhere. Twitter, I don't know why I said that first, because that man on the
X.
X, Twitter, X. Instagram is where I'm really at, and TikTok, of course. TikTok is becoming a new priority. I'll talk to you about that after. TikTok, LinkedIn, Bola_Soul on most apps. LinkedIn, just type in Bola Soul. You can follow me on there. I'll be back on YouTube eventually. And you can find me all around. I do Finance Fridays, which I'm actually going to do after this. And you can find me there. Just thank you so much for having me on. I really love what you do, and I really respect all things money and what you've built.
Thank you so much, Bola. But yeah, guys, do check her out because she's incredible and she really knows her stuff. So yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.